Ninja 1000 SX. Let's go. All right, here we are. We're gonna do the Ninja 1000 SX. I don't have a lot of time to really do a walkthrough, but just want to show you this bike is really awesome. This is like their top dog right now as far as demo. Fast bike. Fast bike. Got a lot of things going on this bike. Lightweight, but a nice platform. Let's just get on this and we'll talk as we go. Poor guys running back and forth because people aren't advertising they have what they're supposed to have.
All right, man. Good to go, right?
Wow. So this is in sport mode. I was just trying to see what other modes this has, but I was not successful in doing that. It's basically just cycling through. Thank you. I've never ridden a Ninja. This is my first time, and I'm going right to the top. Ain't never gonna stop. So immediately, I will tell you, obviously this is a sport bike, and the ergonomics on this are not 1000%, but actually the riding position, besides for my feet being crumpled up, is not bad at all. I'm not a huge fan of these mirrors. They look just so weird sticking straight out. But that's okay. Red line, 10,500 RPMs. He said there, don't advertise the horsepower, but I will in a little bit talk about that and tell you what the internet's found out. Let's go. Wow, not bad. Not bad, not insane, but pretty fun. I must just be getting old, but it takes a lot to get me excited on a motorcycle nowadays. So I do like the comfort of the bike, but I also want a good riding position, something that I can really rock it if I want to. And this bike has a nice tone to it, I'll tell you. This has a little bit of a quick shifter situation going on. So that's nice. I'm not really sure if it's a true quick shifter, but it does seem to engage without the clutch. I absolutely love the tone on this thing. It sounds like a rocket ship when you get onto it. And the throttle on this is smooth as butter. It appears this is a drive-by-wire. Yes, this is drive-by-wire, so that's why it's a little bit better than the cable setup of the last bike I was riding. And honestly, you're not super crouched over. You're somewhat upright on this bike, which is surprising. And again, this is the first time I've ever ridden a Ninja. This has cruise control, which is fantastic. And I'm not really sure about all the other creature comforts that this has. I'm not too familiar with how to cycle through settings and things. I have a feeling that they disable some of the stuff for the demo bikes. Nice comfortable platform for a sport bike, really. The tank kind of tucks in around your body. Your legs kind of tuck up underneath here, so that's aerodynamic. There is the ability to have a rider on this as well with rear sets, so that's nice. The windshield is doing a decent job of pushing air away from me, although I am pretty exposed. if you duck down into it like this, it's a little bit better. The brakes are, boy, I tell you, Kawasaki, what are you doing to me? The brakes are okay, but they're not aggressive. Oh, this bike really does want to come up though. You could feel it, especially going up a hill, right? Very, very smooth going into the corner. Very smooth. I wish I could take this bike away from the pack just for like 5 minutes and get a real feel for how it runs, because I can tell this platform is well thought out. Of course, how long have they been making Ninjas for, right? I mean, years. So they've had a long time to develop and hone. I mean, at the very core, it's a sport bike. After a lot of refining, you end up weeding out the things that really don't matter, and you really end up honing your performance aspect of a sport bike. That's what they're making a bike for, to perform. Every year or every model cycle, they just get better and better. So suspension on this bike, again, for a sport bike, actually not bad. Not super stiff. Like I anticipated this bike to be your typical rice rocket with like no suspension, but quite surprising actually. The handlebars on this are a little interesting. They're like clip-ons, right? They go to the top of the triple clamp, or the triple tree, and then they bolt on. So I suppose you could buy this piece of a different variety to drop it down a little bit more, or move it forward, or maybe even bring it up. The position right now though is very manageable, as you're not really pushing on your wrist very hard, so that's comfortable. And there's literally no vibrations in the handlebars at all. For an inline-four, that's a pretty good job, Kawasaki. That's a pretty good job. Why don't we switch over to VoiceOver Pete and let's talk about some of the specs and engineering on this bike, shall we? Hey, VoiceOver Pete here. How the heck are you? So just talking about specs as far as performance goes on this bike, Kawasaki Ninja 1000 SX is a sport touring bike, and I've used the crotch rocket, rice rocket term a few times in this video, but to be fair, it really is gunning after the sport touring rider. That being said, I'm not really sure about the long distance comfort and ability to ride a 12-hour day on this bike. Maybe it's just because I'm 6'4". Somebody under 6 foot might be well suited for this type of bike, but your legs really have to follow a certain contour on the tank to be firmly planted on the foot pegs. With that being the case, really being scrunched in one position for many hours on end, unless you're like 18 years old, you're not going to enjoy that. As far as performance goes and that type of things, this bike delivers 104 horsepower out of its 1043cc engine. As far as the closest competitors to this, you're looking at one of the Gixxer models from Suzuki. I compare this to my BMW S1000 XR because it's somewhat upright position, although this bike to me tends to lean more towards a sport bike than a sport touring bike. One thing that Kawasaki really shines on with this bike though is the price. So you're getting a bike that is extremely reliable. Team Green is known for its bulletproof engineering, but you're not getting a lot of the premium feel that you might get out of some of the other brands. And don't get me wrong, the bike is fine, it's a nice bike, but it definitely has the cheaper feeling to it. The TFT screen being smaller with limited information, the controls on it, everything seems just a little bit plastic. As far as features on this bike with technology goes, you can control the ABS, cruise control, there's traction control. A lot of these features were disabled because this is a demo bike, but there is quite a few features electronically and safety-wise that are built into the bike. One of the things also that Kawasaki does on this bike is it aims for the higher revs for a more sport bike feel than the lower grunt that you might always feel on a sport touring bike. I realized this bike really didn't want to live below 5,000 RPMs. It really wanted to be wound up so that it had that power to let it live and breathe. The bike, again, Kawasaki's doing this at a very good price point. It's $13,900 in the United States. I guess I was just expecting a little bit more from this bike as far as low-end torque, and the brakes I've mentioned a few times, they seem a little mushy and stale. This bike is a demo bike, but it had less than 500 miles on it when I test drove it, so I really don't take into consideration that it's been flogged too hard by that many people. All in all, I do like this bike. It's a great value, and if somebody's trying to get into sport touring and they're not sure really if they're going to stick with it for a long time, this might be a great option for you. I just wouldn't necessarily be over 6 foot tall and expect to go on really long rides. Let's get back to the action. All right, I know the comments are going to be fire as far as me. Drive faster. Why are you in a group? This isn't a test ride. You talk too much. I get it. I get it. This is an unpaid review, unbiased, and first time ever riding a Kawasaki Ninja. Ever. In my entire 20 years of having motorcycles, I've never ridden one of these. So this is a great experience. And just you do, as you ride different bikes and different manufacturers, you do notice similarities, but then there's quite a few differences that are sometimes quite substantial. So again, being the first time I've ever ridden Ninja, I got to say I'm pretty impressed with the platform. I think that it's it's a comfortable bike. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, as far as a crotch rocket, as they say. But I think I wish the brakes were a little bit better, and these mirrors are awful. But besides for that, this bike is awesome. Super awesome. So we'll get another chance to crack it open right here before the end of the ride, if I time my takeoff right. I mean, it sounds great. Oh my word. This is a fast bike. Fast. Very fast. And I'll tell you the thing I like about it, the power is very linear. It's very smooth. There's no jerkiness to it at all. It just basically goes and goes and goes. I like it. Yeah, very nice. Could I take this on a super long road trip? No way, not a chance. It's too tight for me, being 6'4". I think even anybody above 6 foot, I think you'd find that the cockpit's a little small, but it's not super uncomfortable. In fact, I think this is more spread out than even the Versys that I rode earlier. The power is addictive and smooth as well. So for being an 1000cc sport bike, the power is very, very deliverable and manageable. The brakes leave a little bit to be desired, but I'm sure there's things you can do to fix that as well, maybe even with some aftermarket upgrades. Suspension, spot on the money. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review and my ramblings. Let me know what your thoughts are. Do you have one of these bikes? Have you ridden one of them? What was your thoughts? Did you find the bike was awesome or not so much? Let me know. We always like to hear from our fans, so we appreciate your feedback. And as always, ride safe.